Is it by filing? What?
It's several different things that gives Google clues. Date is one. If yours went up a year or weeks before the other one, there's a good chance Google caught yours first. Other things are inbound links, the number of links that come into your site. If you have more links than the spammer, then odds are Google's going to favor you. And just general trust of the domain, because Google makes decisions about which sites and which domains it trusts. And so, therefore, you've got a good rapport with Google. You've been in the index for a while. You rank well for key terms. Odds are they're going to trust you over anyone else. Now, the obvious problem with this is if you're just starting out, just building a new site, you don't have these things. You're really starting out kind of naked here. And the problem is you're not being indexed very often by Google. You don't have a lot of trust with them. And you probably don't have a lot of inbound links yet. And so Google really struggles making determinations with sites that are new in terms of deciding which is the original and which is the plagiarist copy.
So I know that you've written a lot on your site, Plagiarism Today, about what people can do, and also at copybyte.com, and some of the myths about copyrights. Is there a couple of them you'd like to share?
There's a lot of them. The big one I keep hearing a lot of these days, if it doesn't have a copyright symbol, it's not copyrighted. That is not true. It has not been true in the U.S. since 1978. It used to be, once upon a time, that if you didn't put that little C with a circle on it at the bottom of everything you created, you had no copyright protection. It was essentially in the public domain. That's no longer true. That's been done away with. Everything is copyrighted the moment it's fixed into a tangible medium of expression. Another one I've been seeing a lot of, and I'm still seeing it, and it really frustrates me, is this idea that one way to protect yourself is to mail a copy of your work to yourself, sort of known as poor man's copyright. It's a complete fallacy. It doesn't offer any protections. And the bottom line is, if you believe in that and you do nothing but that, you're actually hurting yourself because there are other steps you should be taking to protect your work instead.
After you went through 6 years of writing that was taken from you and used by other people, do you wish that you had just put it in a book and maybe just released excerpts on the internet now?
No, not really. At the end of the day, having my writing on the internet, I think, was a positive experience. It helped me grow a lot as a writer. There was a certain immediacy to the feedback and sort of engaging in that conversation that you couldn't get by releasing a book and sort of having an excerpt on the web. So I still think it was overall a good thing, but I think it really served kind of as a cautionary tale, because I think the big mistake I made looking back on it was that I wasn't thinking about these copyright and plagiarism issues from day one. If I had stayed on top of it and dealt with these issues as they started coming up, it probably wouldn't have been so bad. The problem was, it wasn't just that so many years of my work had been stolen, it's that the infringement had been going on for so long without me knowing, and at that point it had snowballed to a point that it was almost out of control. So it took a lot of time and effort and heartache to get it back under some level of control. So I think the mistake was not necessarily posting online, it was just not being aware of these issues and not being proactive about them.
Now, I know that on your site you talk about how news organizations are not as interested in checking their own work as they are on checking other people's works.
Yeah.
Why?
This has been one of the big mysteries I've had. I don't know the answer to this one myself. Especially, we've had recent scandals, and we've had major scandals like the Jason Blair one in recent years, and dozens of much smaller ones involving individual reporters who've been caught plagiarizing, usually by very astute readers who notice these things. The Daily Mail has actually been involved in one recently, too, in the UK. So it's been a sort of an ongoing back and forth here. As far as why they prefer to check other people's content, not their own, I think a lot of it has to do with the newspaper industry itself. The industry is really struggling. It's shrinking. Readership is down. And they're looking at fighting piracy as a way of fighting the shrinking industry. And they look at checking their own work and the relatively small expense, both time and money-wise, that would take as, well, an expense that they can't afford during a shrinking market. So I don't necessarily think it's out of malice. I just think it's a very tough sell to get the newspaper industry to bite on spending time and money on something when they're having to lay people off left and right.
When we talk about the news industry now, are you literally talking news online or news not online?
Both,
Okay.
actually. Because most newspapers are now both online. Most major news organizations are kind of a little bit of both now. So I think it's safe to say both.
What is it about RSS that makes it so easy to scrape?
Well, RSS, it stands, depending upon the version you are looking at, it stands for really simple syndication. And the idea is RSS was a technology that was designed to enable things like blog readers, other tools that make it really, really easy to read blog content. And what it does is it's a completely standardized format where your blog and my blog and your neighbor's blog all look very different. Different layouts, different colors, different HTML. RSS is completely standardized. You know, the headline will be between these tags, the body between this. There's a very strict, rigid structure to RSS. And that makes it easy for someone to take that RSS feed, know where the content is, pull it out, copy it, and put it somewhere else. Where with a human, with an actual HTML site, that would require some human element of copying and pasting, or at least some programming element or some time to create a scraper bot or something that could parse that HTML and figure out the start points and so forth. With RSS, you know exactly where to begin, where to end, where the content is, and it's just trivial to get it online anywhere you want it.
So anybody that has RSS can expect that it's going on. Is that correct? On some
More
level?
or less. RSS scraping is a big problem. A lot of it depends on the nature of the blog. If you have a blog that deals with keywords that you would expect a spammer to, bite into, for example, look in your spam folder anytime you want. You'll get an idea of the types of things spammers are still selling. If you have keywords that are related to that, then definitely there's a high risk. I did an experiment some time ago with I set up a fake real estate blog. And all I did was I kind of played around on the keyboard and typed words. It really didn't mean much, but I used words like real estate and mortgage loan and stuff like that regularly, and was able to show that even though the blog was totally unreadable, it was still being scraped, it was still being accessed and having its content picked up. So the result is, yes, it's very likely it's being scraped, but the danger is much, much greater in certain categories.
Got it. Can you explain to us what fair use means? I think this confuses a lot of people.
Well, we talked previously about how there are copyright is a set of exclusive rights. One of them being the right to make and distribute copies of a work. What fair use is basically a narrow exemption to those rights, where sort of copyright is the no, you can't do this. Fair use is the but and ... Basically, in the United States, it carves out a very, very narrow exemption. Well, not actually. The United States actually isn't the most narrow. I shouldn't exaggerate. But the bottom line is the U.S. Carves out an exemption where people can, without permission, copy and republish and do other things with a work, so long as they meet certain criteria. And basically, the overarching theme of fair use, the one bullet point, is that the use has to be transformative. That means you're not trying to create a work that replaces the original, such as taking a photograph of a poster and then making another poster. That wouldn't be a fair use. But if you took a photograph of a poster, shrunk it down to make it a thumbnail and put it as part of a collage, you're using that work in a very small way to make another new work. That's much more likely a fair use. And the fair use test actually has 4 factors. I'll run through them very quickly. The first is the nature and the character of the use. That factor basically shows that fair use favors strongly like educational, commentary, criticism, news-related use, et cetera, et cetera. It favors those uses over just purely commercial uses. The second is the nature of the copyrighted work. That's a pretty simple one. Any work that is unpublished and has not been distributed has much higher protection than the one that has been. The idea being that an author or photographer or movie maker should have the first right of publication in most circumstances. It's very rare, so it's much more rare for unpublished works